When they're not in Brussels or Strasbourg, MEPs are busy working in their constituencies. We follow a Spanish MEP on a visit to Catalonia's Ebro Delta. Before you head off to another EU country, make sure your pets have all their papers. Some states are pushing for stricter veterinary checks. Tough luck for Fido if his passport isn't in order. And a roundup of Europe's headlines.
When he's back home, Ramon Tremosa y Balcells always drives his kids to school. Home is Catalonia, and he's using his visit to talk about Europe. We're heading for the Ebro Delta, a region that depends on fishing and rice farming.
I take the car and I go from county to county. I have a listening and learning attitude to find out about the actual situation of fishermen, stock breeders, manufacturers, farmers.
A university economics professor, Ramon Tremosa, left the lecture halls for the European Parliament a year ago. The MEP hit the ground running. Today's first appointment, meeting local party members and media.
The local press puts me in contact with citizens from the Ebro Delta. Today 3 EU issues brought me here: bluefin tuna, the environmental minimum flow of the Ebro Delta, of the Ebro's mouth, and lastly the future reform of the common agricultural policy and its impact on rice producers.
Bluefin tuna is the priority. Here he is listening to fishermen. The fishermen's complaints relate to outdated statistics on fish stocks, which the EU uses as a basis to cut the capture of certain species. This message will be relayed to the Parliament at a time when Europe is examining reform of the fisheries policy. Back to the Ebro Delta to meet the rice farmers.
They're worried about possible fund cuts due to reform of the common agricultural policy in 2013. And we came to discuss which measures and negotiation stance to adopt to ensure the survival of the Ebro Delta.
At 44, Ramon Tremosa is not going to stay in politics until he retires. He wants to be able to go back to his first loves, his family, party and academia.
I consider politics as a temporal service and not as a definitive profession. This spirit of service is what moved me to run my election campaign and what guides me in my parliamentary duties.
Diggle wakes up to another morning far from his owners. They moved to England, but couldn't take Diggle with them. Diggle stays with Mainture and can't wait to see them again.
Since my brother's dog is up to date with all its vaccinations, he thought he could take it with him. But 3 days before they left, he was told that the dog needed a blood test that should have been taken 6 months before entry to the UK.
Diggle would have been able to move with his owners to most EU countries, but before travelling to the UK, like Finland, Ireland, Malta and Sweden, you should check each country's rules with your vet.
The general regime throughout the EU has in fact improved the rabies situation greatly, but in order to improve it any further, it was decided that certain member states who have no rabies at all would be allowed to have certain additional measures, more strict measures.
Diggle and his fellow dogs, cats and ferrets hope that soon they too can travel around Europe hassle-free, as the twice-postponed deadline for these exceptions should end in 2011. This date should signal the end of a European vaccination programme, so pets should face less risk of catching rabies in their countries.
This financed programme of vaccination has a view that this will be completed by December 2011 and that this threat will be eradicated by then, that their view is that this extension is the final extension.
Then Diggle and his furry friends will be treated equally throughout Europe, unlike humans who still do not have a standardised EU passport.
Good intentions. The European Commission has presented its 2010 work programme. It has 4 key priorities: combating the crisis and supporting the social market economy, implementing policies that take the citizen into account, including in the workplace, strengthening foreign policy, and modernising the EU's instruments and work methods. Serbia breaks with the past and prepares for the future. Belgrade has finally condemned the massacre of almost 8,000 Muslims in Srebrenica in Bosnia in 1995. It also declared its support for the International Criminal Tribunal. It is an important step forward, said Catherine Ashton, head of EU foreign policy. Serbia applied to join the EU in December 2009 and hopes to obtain candidate status by mid-2011.